that social statement is important. I don't want it. I want to take the audience on a trip and not let them think. I think if they think, I've lost.
That's the style of Robert Butler, director of Hogan's Heroes. It was definitely a show that gave viewers a place to escape to, but it was somewhere they wouldn't have expected. Imagine going to a World War II prison camp to laugh at inept prisoners and Nazi soldiers. The ridiculous premise made it a risk for any network, but it turned out to be a winning gamble. Keeping it running for as long as it did, without any mistakes or bloopers, was impossible. That only added to the humor. Keep watching as we go through some notable Hogan's Heroes bloopers and more. Original ideas. Series creators Bernard Fine and Albert S. Ruddy originally had an entirely different vision for Hogan's Heroes. It was going to be set in a domestic American jail. That all changed when they heard NBC was already creating a show titled Campo 44, at the time set in an Italian WW2 prison camp. An interview on the complete series DVD set said that it took a day to rework the show to its World War II setting. Fate gave Robert Butler the director's chair. In his own words,
and so my agent was on the scene and said, what about Butler? And somebody said yes, and so I went and did it. And it was an immense amount of fun.
The pilot was released in black and white, and wasn't exactly like the show the world grew to love. It wasn't unrecognizable, but different in several small but noticeable ways. Stalag 13 was called Camp 13. General Burkhalter was a colonel, Carter was a lieutenant, and wasn't even supposed to appear in the series beyond the pilot. There was also a Russian character played by Leonid Kinsley. He refused to continue with the series because he wasn't comfortable with a comedy featuring Nazis. He wasn't the only one who refused to continue after the pilot. Albert also refused to be directly involved any longer. He didn't want to be contracted on a TV show. After that, it was time to finalize the rest of the show's details. Theme song. Jerry Fielding composed the theme song for Hogan's Heroes. Many people may not have noticed that the song has lyrics. Robert Clay, Richard Dawson, Ivan Dixon, and Larry Hovis sang them together for the show's soundtrack. It has 4 verses. The primary one that most people know goes, "Heroes, heroes, husky men of war, sons of all the heroes of the war before. We're all heroes up to our eros. You ask the questions, we make suggestions, that's what we're heroes for." It was the perfect match for the show. It had music reminiscent of a battle march and lighthearted lyrics that still honored those who served their country. Bob Crane was a talented percussionist who played drums for the song. His skills also showed up in Season 1, Episode 5. He played a drum solo during the song Cherokee during Season 6, Episode 23, Look at the Pretty Snowflakes. Tagline. Movies and shows can live or die by their tagline. They're like catchy little jingles to bring viewers in. Hogan's Heroes originally had a hard time coming up with theirs. They needed something cheeky and catchy that summed up their show. What they came up with pushed the envelope more than almost any before. It was a successful bit of advertising that came about by accident. Comedian Stan Fredgerg sarcastically suggested, "If you liked World War II, you'll love Hogan's Heroes." It was shot down at first until the crew realized it was perfect. The tagline helped advertise the show and its premise to the world. It let everyone know what they were getting into and brought in new fans. Airing in Germany. Hogan's Heroes first aired in America in 1965. It took until 1992 for it to air in Germany. Film distributor Kirch Group acquired the rights in 1991 and aired it a year later. There needed to be plenty of changes for it to move across the pond. The first thing that got altered was the title. The original German title, Stockdilrach und Fersengeld, translated to Barbed Wire and Heels. It was eventually changed to the translation for A Cage Full of Heroes. The show failed to find success in Germany at first. Poor translation and lip syncing were the first issues. Its storylines also had to be modified for German audiences. The Nazi characters got even more idiotic dialogue. Klink got an off-screen love interest named Kalinka, who was heard but never seen. Any Heil Hitler salutes were changed to Heil Krauter. Violent dialogue and story beats were also altered. The Americans destroyed a munitions factory in the American version, but a toilet paper factory in the German version. In another episode, Sergeant Schultz's reporting of the bombing of Hamburg is changed to a report of the Royal Air Force dropping candy as a propaganda maneuver. These changes eventually brought Hogan's Heroes over to Germany. And while it took decades for them to enjoy the daily antics at the camp, it was better late than never. Legal issues. Donald Bevan and Edmund Trzynski wrote the play Stalag 17. It was a WW2 prisoner of war story turned into a 1953 film. They weren't pleased when they saw Hogan's Heroes and sued its producer, Bing Crosby, for infringement. The lawsuit was unsuccessful. The jury ruled in the playwright's favor, but the judge overruled them. He found a, quote, striking difference in the dramatic moods of the two works. Hogan's Heroes got into legal trouble again in 2012. The show's creators, Bernard Fine and Albert Ruddy, had transferred the TV and movie rights to Bing Crosby Productions. Bernard got the sole movie rights along with the sequel and other separate rights through Mark Cuban via arbitration. A Hogan's Heroes movie was planned as of 2014. There was a hit album and merchandise. Home releases came out soon after the series ended. Columbia House released all 6 seasons of Hogan's Heroes. They also put out a VHS collection of all 168 episodes. Paramount later released them on DVD. CBS re-released it at a lower price on March 8, 2016. There was a Blu-ray series released December 12, 2022. Australia didn't get a home release until around 2002, with each disc sold separately. Germany had to wait until 2018 when they got the complete series. Hogan's Heroes also had plenty of merchandise, as any hit show does. Fleer produced a set of 66 trading cards in 1965. Dell Comics released 9 issues from 1966 to 69 with artwork by Henry Scarpelli. Mad Magazine did affectionate parodies of it in issue number 108 called Hogan's Heroes and Hockman Heroes. Hogan's Heroes also had several musically talented actors. It's no wonder it had a hit album. Several of its actors, including Larry Hovis and Ivan Dixon, joined together. They sang a collection of popular war songs from the 1940s. The liner note on the back reads, "Would you believe WW2 was funny?" Fans of the show would give an emphatic yes. The show's success. Hogan's Heroes ran for 196 episodes from 1965 to 71, making it the longest World War II-inspired show of the time. It was a success until its final season. As Roberts said in an interview with Television Academy, "They loved it. It was amazing. I am still called LeBeau." One of the major reasons it was canceled was a change known as the Rural Purge. TV advertisers began to complain there were too many shows set in rural areas. They wanted to sell to urban customers more and wanted more shows set there. Another was the fact that the Vietnam War was raging at the time. Viewers weren't as interested in watching a show that gave a funny slant to war. That didn't stop it from earning awards and honors in its time. It may not have gotten a full shelf, but it was considered for the trophy several times. Hogan's Heroes was nominated for 12 Emmys. The show itself was in the running for Outstanding Comedy Series in 1966, 76, and 68. Bob Crane was nominated for Outstanding Continued Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role in a Comedy Series in 1966 and 67. Nina Labat got one for Outstanding Performance by an Actress in a Supporting Role in a Comedy in 1968. Gordon Avil was considered for cinematography in 68 as well. The show only won 2 of these many nominations. Both were awarded to Werner Klempner for Outstanding Role in a Comedy in 1968 and 69. He earned nominations in the same category in 66, 67, and 70. The producers were honored in one of the first ever NAACP Image Awards in 1967. They were one of only 7 TV shows considered, along with I Spy, Daktari, Star Trek, and Mission Impossible. They got the honor for the, quote, furtherance of the Negro image. Hogan's Heroes got listed at number 100 as part of TV Guide and TV Land's top 100 most unexpected moments in TV history. The magazines described it as an unlikely POW camp comedy. The premise was what set it apart most of all. The idea of a POW camp comedy was unlikely, but it came out at a time when audiences were charmed by it. It was so ridiculous that it worked. The cast. A show like Hogan's Heroes needed a strong cast of heroes to succeed. It was almost a miracle they found the actors they did. All 4 of the actors who played the Nazis on the show were Jewish. That included Werner Klemperer, Leon Askin, John Banner, and Howard Caine. They all served during World War II, and each of them, except for Howard, had to escape real Nazi persecution during the war. Harold Gould was also Jewish and a service member. John was the one who suggested going in this direction. He talked to the producers about it. When asked why, he said, "Well, who better to play Nazis than us Jews?" Warner auditioned for Sergeant Schultz, and John was considered for Commandant Klink. Their roles were later switched. Werner said about the role, quote, "I'm an actor. If I can play Richard II, I can play a Nazi." Despite this, he only accepted the role after a bit of reassurance. The show's creators told him that the inept colonel would never succeed in his schemes. That's all he needed to know to be sure he could play him with the right comedic tint. The main cast weren't the only Jewish cast members. Harold Gould and Harold J. Stone were also Jewish actors who made appearances as German generals. Only 2 actors appeared in all 168 episodes. They were Bob Crane and Werner Klemperer. Ivan Dixon left at the end of the 5th season to find new experiences as an actor. All the original cast members were signed to a 5-year contract, but had the option to sign on for another 2 years, and he declined. He was replaced by Kenneth Washington as Sergeant Baker, with no mention of what happened to his character, Sergeant Kinchlow. Ivan became a successful director and actor. He later said, if he'd known Hogan's Heroes would have lasted a year after he left and that's it, he may have stayed. He also had a wonderful friendship with the cast and would often visit Howard and his family. Cynthia Lynn broke her 5-year contract with the show after the 1st season, but it was an amicable split. She was replaced by Sigrid Valdis for seasons 2 through 6. Robert Clay died November 16, 2022. That means the only original cast member still alive is Kenneth Washington. Reusing and borrowing actors. Hogan's Heroes had a tendency to reuse and recycle actors for multiple roles. It allowed them to fill in what was necessary for the story without having to go over budget to find extras. Kathleen Freeman typically played Frau Gertrude Linkmeyer, but once played Alice Ghostly. Cynthia Lynn played Helga in Season 1. Bob insisted she be replaced by Sigrid Valdis, who played Higa after he began dating and later married her. Hogan's Heroes didn't only recycle, it borrowed. Actors from other series also came on to the hit show. Some came over from similar wartime programs. William Christopher of MASH played a POW, a German soldier, and a British pilot. Harold J. Stone played an American agent and a German general. The list of other cast members beyond the main crew is large and somewhat surprising. Antoinette Bauer played Berlin Betty, who was an underground agent. Arlene Martell played Tiger in certain episodes, and also Olga and Gretchen in others. Henry Corden, the voice of Fred Flintstone, played 5 different characters in 5 episodes. A deeper dive into the main cast members. Bob Crane. Bob played Colonel Robert Hogan, the senior ranking officer in the camp. He used wit and skill to sabotage the plans of the Germans. The vision was to make him smart, but also the guy next door type. He got offered the part after appearing in roles like The Dick Van Dyke Show and The Donna Reed Show. On June 29, 1978, Bob was discovered after being viciously attacked in his apartment in Scottsdale. It was his temporary home while he was living there and starring in a dinner theater production of Beginner's Luck. He missed a lunch meeting with co-star Victoria Ann Berry. She was concerned and went to his apartment where she discovered his body. He was shirtless, lying on the side of the bed. He'd been bludgeoned to death with 2 gashes on his head. There was also an electrical cord wrapped around his neck, and there was blood throughout the apartment. The violent crime scene showed no evidence of a struggle or a murder weapon. Police concluded that whomever murdered Bob must have known him. They found his blood in a rental car belonging to an acquaintance named John Henry Carpenter. He'd been taking illicit photos of Bob's many affairs, and they'd been working together to make adult films. Bob allegedly wanted to stop their arrangement when he got to Scottsdale, but John wasn't having it. Witnesses saw them arguing at a restaurant the night before he died. John was the prime suspect, but was acquitted due to a lack of DNA evidence or a murder weapon. The unsolved murder continues to fascinate to this day. It inspired a 2002 movie, 5 books, 3 investigations, and plenty of speculation. Bob's son Robert says there's still fog that he wishes he could have closure on. Howard Caine. Howard appeared in 2 episodes at the beginning of the series playing different characters. He was Major Keitel in Season 1, Episode 17, Happy Birthday Adolf. He also played Colonel Feldkamp in Season 2, Episode 5, The Battle of Stalag 13. He eventually found a permanent role as Major Hockestetter. He was a talented actor and language expert, mastering 32 foreign and American dialects. Leon Askin. Leon Askin played General Burkhalter. He was a prisoner at an internment camp in Malais-du-Marne, France. His parents were transported to Theresienstadt, then Auschwitz, then killed at Lubin. When he got out, he got immigration papers and went to America. His English was limited, but he managed to find his way. He also served in the army during the war. Werner Klempner. Werner played Colonel Wilhelm Klink, the commandant of the camp. He and his family had to flee Germany during the war in 1933. He served in the U.S. Armed Forces in the U.S. Entertainment Unit. He had a connection to fame from the beginning. His father, Otto Klempner, conducted the Beatles in their 1965 film Help. He may not have been proud of his son's career choice, though. Werner once said that during the filming of Hogan's Heroes, his father told him, "Your acting is fine, but who writes this stuff?" Werner tried to take everything in stride. He had played a Nazi once before in 1961's Judgment at Nuremberg, and again in 1961 in the lead of Operation Eichmann, where he joined up with his Hogan's Heroes co-star John Banner. An article once said he was at a restaurant one day when a waiter nearly dropped a saucer. He put on his best Colonel Klink voice and said, "For that, he will turn and face the wall for 100 minutes before returning to his normal smile." He got typecast into villainous roles for a while, but it didn't last forever. He once said, "If you have an accent, you get typecast. I've played villains in almost every country you can think of." The end of Hogan's Heroes brought an end to that streak, and he never played a straight villain after it. John Banner. John played Sergeant Hans Schultz. He was the camp's inept but lovable sergeant. John always saw Schultz as not an instrument of the German Empire, but a representative of some kind of good in any generation.
As a representative of some kind of good in any generation.
He always seemed to be playing for both teams, or maybe neither one. The catchphrase of "I see nothing" may have been him deliberately turning a blind eye to the heroes. John also had a response for those who said that a comedic show about an event as serious as WW2 could never work. He brought up Arsenic and Old Lace, a successful comedy film about women who poison male visitors in their basement. John was born to Jewish parents and was a sergeant during World War II in the U.S. Army. He was held in a pre-war concentration camp where his family was killed during the war. He had to flee Austria after the Anschluss, or Union of Germany and Austria, in 1938. He came to the U.S. and knew no English. He got hired to be the MC of a musical revue and learned his lines phonetically. After Hogan's Heroes, he played a similar role to Sergeant Schultz. He appeared in the 1964 film 36 Hours. John died at age 63 on January 28, 1973, in his hometown of Vienna, Austria. Robert Clary. Robert played Corporal Louis Lebeau, a patriotic Frenchman and gourmet chef. He earned the nasty nickname of the Cockroach and trained the guard dogs. He was a French Jew who went to a concentration camp with the identity tattoo A5714. His parents and family were killed there. It was Robert's ability to entertain that saved his life. He once said in an interview with the LA Times, "Singing, entertaining, and being in kind of good health at my age, that's why I survived. I was very immature and young, and not really fully realizing what situation I was involved with. I don't know if I would have survived if I really knew that." It was also survival that made him choose the part of Corporal Lewis.
We're going to say no to a pot that's going to give us money every week? Especially if the pot is good? Yeah. It's a tough business.
Richard Dawson. Richard played Corporal Peter Newkirk, the main group's resident con man. He got into the POW camp for impersonating German soldiers, but was one of its most talented residents. He could sew clothes, pick locks or pockets, crack safes, pull off magic tricks, and do whatever else the group needed. Richard got the role mainly because of his previous experience with military characters. That included his work on 1965's King Rat. Ivan Dixon. Ivan played Staff Sergeant James Kinchol from seasons 1 through 5. He worked to contact the underground by radio. Casting an African-American actor in such a positive light was a step forward in the 1960s. The show fortunately didn't stop the progression after he left, replacing him with another African-American, Kenneth Washington. Larry Hovis. Larry played Technical Sergeant Andrew Carter. He specialized in chemistry and explosives. He was discovered by Richard Linke, producer of The Andy Griffith Show. He had a recurring role on that show's spin-off, Gomer Pyle USMC, before joining Hogan's Heroes. Kenneth Washington. Kenneth played Sergeant Richard Baker in Season 6. He took over Sergeant James's duties after Ivan left the cast. He became the last surviving member of the original cast after Robert Clay's death in 2022. Special skills. The cast of Hogan's Heroes were more than actors. They and their families had talents beyond what fans saw on camera. There was a running gag in the show that Klink was a terrible violinist. Werner was skilled with the instrument and learned from his conductor father. He could also conduct a bit himself and was a frequent narrator for operations from 1973 to 95. Another gag was the way Sergeant Schultz often criticized his wife's cooking. John Banner had the good fortune of not having art imitate life here. His wife's cooking was delicious and made him gain quite a bit of weight before he was hired. There were also several other musicians in the cast. Bob played the drums. Howard was an award-winning banjo player. Richard was a musician as well. Robert, Larry, and Ivan were singers. Many of them got to show off their talents on the show's hit album. Working together again. Most of the Hogan's Heroes cast got along well together. They had a sense of humor and enjoyed letting loose on set. Many of the primary members got to work together again. They joined for the 1968 film The Wicked Dreams of Paula Schultz. Werner and John also got another chance to work together. In 1955, they appeared in Safe Conduct, Season 1, Episode 21 of Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Now let's talk about some secrets from the show. Cars. Many men feel like their car is one of a kind. General Burkhalter could truthfully say this of his Mercedes-Benz W31. Only 57 of the black and gray models were ever made. Only 3 remained after the war. One belonged to the Spanish monarchy, another was a fire engine, and the last one appeared on the set of Hogan's Heroes. The show also used another unique car. The Mercedes G4 parade car seen in the opening credits was popular with the German elite during the war. That made it another important part of automotive history. Special headwear. Cars weren't the only precious items in the Hogan's Heroes cast. A few of them had headwear they cherished. Colonel Klink had a pre-World War I Prussian army helmet on his desk known as Pinkelhaube. He treated it like it was his most prized possession. It's different from similar items found in museums. Historians believe it most likely is a replica from the prop department. That doesn't make it any less important to fans, though. It's on display at the Liberty Aviation Museum in Port Clinton, Ohio, along with Hogan's Army Corps cap. Sets and filming. Hogan's Heroes was set in the fictional Luftstalag 13. It was inspired by Stalag 13C, a real prisoner of war camp in Hammelburg, Bavaria. It was overcrowded and lacked basic amenities, and it inspired Hogan's Heroes set. The filming was done in 2 locations. Indoor shots were done at Desilu Studio, later renamed Paramount Studios, for Season 4. They moved to Cinema General Studios for Season 5 and 6. Outdoor shots were handled in the LA metropolitan area. Despite the warm climate, every episode of Hogan's Hero was intentionally set in winter. The first several seasons created snow with salt, but then they used white paint. Robert remembers it well.
The production designer being a very savvy guy, and on the hills nearby, he staked out sheets to look like decaying snow, sections of snow.
There were a few episodes with non-winter settings, such as D-Day at Stalag 13. These weren't filmed outdoors, and they didn't add any snow. The choice of weather was meant to highlight how bleak and depressing the characters' situations were. The actors had to wear coats and act cold, despite the fact they were in 90-degree weather. The winter season also allowed episodes to be shown in any order without continuity errors. There were a few issues though, such as palm trees sneaking into frames in a few scenes. Most night scenes used a day-for-night filter. It made scenes filmed during the day look darker. The effect helped, but wasn't perfect because you could still see shadows cast by the sunlight. The set was used in several other movies. They include 1968's Trial by Fury and 1975's Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS. It was burned during the filming of the latter film. The cleared lot was the set of another movie in 1975 before being bulldozed in 1976 and turned into an industrial park. A real scar. General Burkhalter had an intimidating scar on his face. It turns out that wasn't makeup or purely a character detail added to make him look tougher. Leon got that scar as a child. He was beaten up by the SS for being Jewish. They knew by his birth name, Leo Ashkenazi. The mental scars he suffered were even worse. Robert Clary's emotional wounds were ripped open again when he did a documentary called Robert Clary A5714, titled after his internment number. He remembers prisoners being carried in cattle trains and never knowing how many would survive. In his own touching words,
Towards other people. Why do they do that? Why can't they let other people live a life that they want to live?
goofs and weird details. Hogan's heroes came up with several unique ideas for how to handle secret information. Most of them are a bit odd on closer inspection. Consider the third season episode, How to Win Friends and Influence Nazis. General Burkhalter gives Colonel Klink documents marked top secret. This would have made sense if not for the fact that the document was German in origin. Writing in English would have only caused more suspicion. Colonel Hogan also comes up with secret code names for the other members of his outfit. They include Papa Bear, Goldilocks, and Little Red Riding Hood. One nickname went unexplained. Why did Schultz and Klink always call LeBeau Cockroach? The simplest explanation is his height. He's short and scrappy. There's also another explanation if you look into the German language. The two words for cockroach, Kakerlak and Kuchenschab, both translate to Kitchenblattodea, the order of bugs cockroaches belong to. They're often found in the kitchen, and LeBeau is the camp's designated cook. Wardrobe malfunctions. Carter's jacket is like a piece of his skin. It's also a special piece of film history, originally worn by Frank Sinatra in 1965's Von Ryan's Express and later by Greg Kinnear in 2002's Autofocus. The jacket looks well worn and dirty in almost every scene except one. There's an episode of Season 6 where it looks shiny and new. No one knows why this happened. Another wardrobe malfunction happens in a Season 2 episode. A red hat suddenly becomes green for a moment. Robert was given the wrong one between takes. No one seemed to notice or fix the slip-up. Factual and timeline problems. Hogan and his heroes make for an entertaining group. The problem, if you look at it logically, is that they wouldn't have been stationed together in reality. Officers were almost always stationed apart from unranked POWs. The show seemed to struggle with maintaining the right ranks for characters. They didn't always wear the proper insignia or clothes for their position. The insignia on Major Hochstetter's collar is that of a Standartenführer, or the U.S. Army equivalent of a full colonel. Group Captain Crittenden wears the wrong hat for a captain. The RAF corporal wears U.S.-issued hats and uniforms. Hogan's Heroes is set in the 40s. That doesn't prevent the characters from discussing Speedy Gonzales more than once. The popular cartoon Mouse wouldn't be introduced until the 1953 cartoon Cattails for Two. Colonel Hogan also couldn't have been working in the Pentagon like he claimed. It wasn't fully constructed until 1943. The wardrobe also created a timeline problem. The Gestapo didn't wear the black uniforms they do in Hogan's Heroes. They were reserved for ceremonial affairs. The plain clothes in 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark are more accurate. Continuity issues. You'd think the details of the POW camp where the heroes are being kept would stay consistent, but that's not true. In the first season, its title alternates between Stalag 13 and Camp 13. Perhaps the showrunners couldn't decide if they liked the original name from the pilot or the later one better. Sergeant Schultz often announces his serial number. The problem is it changes every time he does. It can't seem to stay consistent from episode to episode. Carter's actual level of chemical knowledge is inconsistent. In the episode The Scientist, he says he can't teach LeBeau chemistry because he only runs a drugstore. An earlier episode, German Bridge is Fallen Down, shows him making chlorine gas out of pneumonia and bleach. A later episode, Hogan Springs, shows him mixing a batch of mineral water. How much does he know? It seems he even understood elements that weren't understood yet at the time of the show. A periodic table of elements in one episode shows all 103 elements known by the 1960s. Only 92 would have been discovered in the 40s. Robert also found another simple way to sum up his directing style. Several odd details and goofs passed his notice and got through into the show. He'd probably only be upset to learn about them if they took away audience enjoyment. They range from the glaringly obvious to the ones that only superfans would find. Now it's time to hear from you. Who is your favorite character on Hogan's Heroes? And what's your favorite war comedy? Let us know in the comments section below.